Okay, so let's see. Let's kind of run down everything that we need. We need, of course, the pattern, and you're going to need the accoutrement. So it depends. It's completely your decision what you want to use as far as the hardware is concerned. But I'm using this like brass kind of, and honestly, like this is what I had just kind of like hanging around. I wanted to do like a brushed silver, but the D-rings that I had were a little too large. And I am making the smaller bag. Now, this bag, I did a hack to this bag. And the only changes that I made were I made it 6 inches wider and 3 inches taller. And it just completely changed the whole vibe of the bag. And in terms of the pattern alterations, all I did was literally cut it down the middle, added 6 inches. So I cut a piece of paper 6 inches wide, 3 inches long, and kind of like stuck it there. I didn't make any other changes with the exception of the handle. So with the handle, I made the handle, I believe, well, I added 3 inches to the handle as well. So I changed the handle and I changed the pattern in terms of just the width and the length, nothing else. Everything stayed the same. So let's go ahead and put the pattern together. So this is also the fabric that I'm going to be using. This is, I don't even know what this is, to be honest. It has like this cushiony back. And this is almost like, it feels a bit like a raffia, but I know it's not. I've had it for a really long time. I have no idea where I got it from. I can't even recall it. But I figure, you know what, this should be quick and easy enough. So I've mentioned this before. With this particular bag, it can be done with leather as well as, you know, like an upholstery fabric is what I recommend, like some type of upholstery fabric, something that has a little bit of weight to it. And you are going to be using a stabilizer. And I'll just show you quickly. This stabilizer, what is this called? Texon. It's really tough. I also use this with shoemaking. You can get this pretty much anywhere leather is sold. One resource is Tandy Leather. So if you have one in close proximity to you, or online, tandyleather.com. But you can also get this on Amazon. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and link this at the bottom as well. So you're going to need this here, which is the stabilizer. You're going to need this throughout the bag. So because of that, you can use whatever fabric you want, because once you attach this, it's going to give it its shape. It's going to make it boxy. And of course, this particular pattern is called the Bristol box bag, and it's literally kind of like a box. Every portion of this bag has this added in. So make sure you keep that in mind. So if you are using a leather, make sure you have a machine that can accommodate the leather. So this bag that I made, it is a significantly heavier fabric. It's a lot heavier than the normal leather. And so I use my Sailrite, and I'm barely getting it through with my Sailrite. This one, I am going to use my Sailrite just because it's here. But you know, it's a thinner fabric. I could use my Bernina to get through this. You can use any type of machine. So keep that in mind. So if you are planning to use a leather, you know, depending on what the leather is, just make sure you have a machine that can accommodate. Now, you can also hand stitch. Yes, you can hand stitch the leather. I know a lot of people make bags and don't use a machine. They use strictly hand stitching. It would take me forever and a day if I was hand stitching. So of course I'm just going to go ahead and use a machine. So let me just set this to the side. Okay, so the pattern. The pattern has 9 pieces to it, 9 sheets of paper. So we'll go ahead. And it's a really, you know, back patterns are really easy patterns to deal with. So you have piece number 1 or sheet number 1, which is the front flap. So this is going to be it's going to be the back of the bag and then the front flap of the front of the bag. So you have an A here, A to A, and it says here join. So what you'll do is we'll cut off, I have the wrong scissors, but let's just go ahead and cut a piece of this off. Then just go ahead and tape this. So each pattern piece is going to let you know what you need to cut out. So this one, again, this is the front flap and the back. So this will be the handle placement. It will be folded over kind of like this. So this will be the back and this will be the front. Make sure you pay close attention to the markings. There's quite a few markings on here. So it's the handle screw placement, and this is where this part here will go. You also have the magnetic closure, and you're going to need these. And I'm going to go over kind of like the hardware as well. And it's telling you here you need to cut 1 for the fabric or leather and 1 for the lining. So it states here the cutting line. So you want to do the cutting line for the fabric as well as the cutting line for the lining at the same place. All right, so once we do that, we'll go ahead and set it apart. Now also, this is the back. Now if you can see, it's kind of like with this dotted line, it's showing you kind of the placement for the back pocket. So just make note of all the little pieces. Also, I printed this out, of course, and my printer is black and white. So for the stabilizer, I've outlined the stabilizer pieces that you need to cut, and they're noted in red. So just make sure you make note of that because you will have to cut out a separate pattern piece just for the stabilizer. All right, so let's set this to the side. And then you have the bottom piece here, and it's the same thing with the join here. So B and B, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut off the bottom or the top. It doesn't matter which one. And then go ahead and join these together. And then we're going to tape it. Oh. Set this to the side. And those are the only 2 sheets that you need to tape. So we can set the tape to the side. Then let's go ahead and cut the pattern out. So what you're going to do is you're just going to cut out the one. Well, here's the thing. You have to make really close and pay close attention to what the instructions say. Because right this one, we have the back pocket. So you're going to cut out the one back pocket, but you're going to use this back pocket for the stabilizer, for the fabric, and for the lining. Just making note, the smaller line here is going to be for the stabilizer. So for all the pieces that have the stabilizer, you're going to make sure you cut that out. With the exception of the back stabilizer, it has its own pattern piece for the stabilizer, as well as the back flap stabilizer and the handle placement stabilizer. So let's go ahead and cut all the pieces out and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so we have all the pieces cut out. We have the stabilizers cut out, the lining, so on and so forth. So what you'll have to make sure you have are clips, whatever type of clips you use. So you can also use like a fabric tape, or you can use a glue. We may or may not use an edge coat. So I typically make this bag in leather. And with leather, of course, you're going to need an edge coat. And there's a few other tools that you'll need. You'll need a way to kind of like buff the outer edges of the bag. And also edge coat. I think edge coat, it covers up a lot of imperfections as well. So another thing you're going to need is just an extra piece of fabric, because you're going to need to make like little hoops that essentially will go, and I'll show you, you know, we can go ahead and do this now. And the reason I didn't include this with the pattern was because depending on the size of your D-ring is going to determine the size that we cut here. My D-ring is 1 inch. So I'm going to cut this 1 inch. And it's a little wonky, so this is going to be 1 inch. All right, so this is going to go over here. And this is probably like 1.5 inches. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and clip this. We want to do that for both D-rings. Now, if you are using a different size D-ring, you're going to have to make sure you cut this size. So if you're using a 1/2 inch D-ring, which they do have them, you'll have to cut this 1/2 inch. If you're using 1.5 inches, you're going to have to cut it 1.5 inches. So again, it's going to depend on the size of your D-ring. This is it's about right. So once you sew this on, as you can see, you're going to kind of like push it down. So only this part is going to be showing. So don't concern yourself too much with the length. Just make sure the width is going to be right for the particular size D-ring that you have. All right, and let's set this to the side. Okay, so you're also going to need feet for the bag. I'm using these because this is all I have. I have tons of these. I'm going to use these as feet. But for these, I used these feet, which I really like these a lot, but I ran out. And I will link both types of feet down in the description as well. You're going to need, and this is the screws that you're going to need for the handle. You're going to need 2 of these. I really like working with these because it's a really simple process. You don't need any type of grommet tool. They screw on and off. So I love that. They're super simple and they just look really good. They look really good and sturdy, and they're easy to put on. So you're also going to need these little things here. And this is the hardware to open and close the bag. So these, I'm not sure, I'll look and see. I can't remember what the name of them are. But they're just these simple things. And there's multiple sizes for these. I have a kit that pretty much has every size, but because this bag is the smaller bag, I want the smaller hardware. And you can see here. And I think that is it. Yeah. So let's go ahead. Let me see. Am I missing anything? So if you are using leather, one thing that I recommend is you have this little perforated thing here, but they have them for leather, which comes in so handy. Let me see if I have it on here. They have these, and I use these for leather. I mean, they're a real lifesaver, and they're even more of a lifesaver if you're going to do hand stitching, because as you roll this, it makes these indentations in the leather that keeps you on track on where you need to put your next hole for stitching. So this thing right here is a lifesaver. Also, we have this heavy duty leather punch. I use it not just for leather punch, but I use it to make just like really good holes in my fabric. And as you can see here, it leaves a really nice hole. You're gonna need this, or you can use an awl. I mean, these are probably like $2. So the stabilizer is really heavy, really thick. It's very difficult to cut it with scissors. So I would definitely recommend using an X-Acto knife for that. All right, let's go ahead. So I'm gonna move this to the side. All right, what we want to do is we want to take the front piece. And what I've already gone ahead and done was I did my markings. So there's just a couple pages that you have your markings. This particular pattern piece, as well as the bottom. And the button placement on the where is this? The front. The button placement on the front and the feet. All right, so let's just get started with the front here. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and we want to place the stabilizer. So there's 3 different places where we're going to have the stabilizer. We're going to have the stabilizer at the front flap. You're going to have the stabilizer for the handle, and then you're going to have the stabilizer for the back. So this is going to be the back. It's going to fold over to the front. So let's go ahead and add the stabilizer. So we have the back stabilizer here. So the back stabilizer is going to be here. And just for reference, you can always kind of like look back just to kind of see where you're going to place this. So essentially what you want to do is you want to position it in a place that you're going to have your seams, seam allowance here on the side. Because when you're stitching, you're just going to be stitching on the sides here. So you're going to stitch at the very edge. So let's go ahead and open this. Set this here so I don't get it on my table. Okay, so you're going to do the back. You're also going to the flap stabilizer, which is going to go here. And then we're going to do the handle placement. which will be here. So go ahead, spread the glue on the opposite side, and then go ahead and press it until it adheres. Again, if you do not have the glue, you can use the fabric tape. That'll work just as well. Okay, so while this is kind of drying on here, we're going to move to the front. So this is the front piece. Let me find it so that you can see what it looks like. Is this the front? Yes. So this is what the front piece looks like, and this is the front. So it has the button placements. You want to make sure you have your markings. And so before we put the stabilizer on here, let's go ahead and we're going to put the buttons. Well, I call them buttons, but they're like the little magnet buttons here. So we're going to grab these and we're going to place them in. So I'm going to go ahead and just I'm going to pop a hole in here. And we're going to do this on each side. And then I'm going to just take my awl just to make the hole a little larger. And you're going to have to work these in. Oh, I can't even see it on this side. Let's see. Okay, so you want to do this for both sides. Once you do that, go ahead and just like we did the stabilizer on the back, we're going to grab the front piece of stabilizer, place it on top, glue it, and do the same thing. Be right back. Okay, so we have the front, the buttons installed, and we have the stabilizer on the front as well. So now what you want to do is you want to take the bottom. So we have the bottom stabilizer and the bottom lining. You want to take the bottom and you're going to attach the bottom to the back and to the front. So you want to take the bottom and you want to place it right at the edge. And you want to do the same thing on the other side. This is the end, and you want to place it under. So essentially this is what you want it to look like. But let's turn it over. I'm actually also going to grab tape really quick. All right, so we're going to put tape just on the edges here. If you don't have tape, you can also just use the glue. It'll just take slightly longer, but we're going to place the tape here. And this is just a double-sided leather tape. And I will also tag the tape on here. I mean, double-sided leather tape is just like the best. And it's not like a normal double-sided tape. The leather tape, it secures it almost permanently. It's really, really good. I use it not just for leather, I use it for everything actually. All right. And then we're gonna just pull this off here. Do the same thing over here. So you're going to place the front. This is the bottom of the front, as you can see. And it's with the front on top of the bottom. And you want to do just the edge, that little seam allowance that you have here. So when you stitch that, you're going to stitch right across the edge. We're going to do the same thing. This is the back, how it's going to be folded over. This is the bottom. Just take the bottom and attach it right here, right on the edge where this tape is. Make sure we have okay. So now what you're going to do is go ahead and stitch across here and across here. Okay, so we have the bottom connected to the back and the front. Now what you want to do, you want to take the little feet. Let me put the lid on here. Okay. So you want to take the feet and you want to attach them. So I'm going to just poke the hole right in the middle. And then I'm going to take and fold these out. You want to get them as flat as you can. Okay, so now you want to do that to the 3 other ones, and then once you do that, go ahead and affix the stabilizer right on top of these. Okay, so we have the feet attached, and now what we want to do is work on the handle. So let's just set this to the side, and we want to take these 2 pieces here, which is for the handle, and then you have the stabilizer. So what we're going to do is go ahead and place the stabilizer. You want to affix your stabilizer, and then you want to place the other piece on top and then stitch it all the way around. Okay, so we have the handle stitched, and I just went ahead and kind of put some clips where the holes are. And if you kind of look on here, it lets you know where the markings are, where you're going to actually put the hardware in. But what I'm going to do now, even though this isn't leather, I'm going to put some edge coat, and we're going to see how this works. You may or may not need to. Of course, if you're using leather, then I would 100% recommend it. But I'm just going to see how this looks. And because the way I'm stitching it, I'm not stitching it so that I'm going to, like an inside stitch. So everything is outwardly stitched. So it's going to be raw edges. And this is my first time making this bag without, with this type of fabric. So it's kind of like I mentioned before, it's almost like a raffia. So it kind of unravels just a bit, but I like it. Yeah, so I've had this around for a while, so it's pretty old. But let's go ahead and see how this is going to look. I don't know how it's going to perform, but we will see. It's probably going to bleed in. Okay, here we go. Just a bit. No, I like it actually. Okay. If you can see this, it looks good. I like it a lot actually. It makes it look more finished. I'm going to just let this dry before I attach this to the bag. But yeah, I like it. So we'll set this here. I'm gonna have to clean this up so it doesn't get too messy. But in the meantime, while I'm allowing this to dry, I'm just gonna scooch this over. And so we have the handle placement. What you can do is just to make sure the marking is where it's supposed to be. Just kind of lay this over, take an awl or something, and then just mark where it's going to be. Once you do that, it's going to make the hole. I already punched this hole. And then just take and do this. And this is where the hole is going to be. So once the handle dries, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to mark where the holes go. We're going to go ahead and punch them, and then we're going to attach the handle. Okay, so in the meantime, while that's drying, what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab the back pocket. So set the lining to the side. Okay, so now what you want to do is attach the stabilizer to the back here. And once we do that, I want to then, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and use the edge coat on the edge of this, and then let that dry. And then we're going to do the lining for the back pocket a little different. So go ahead and attach the stabilizer. And this is just the back pocket. It's going to go on here like such. I just thought about something. It would look really cute if I did a different type of fabric on here. I always do that. I change it mid. But you know what? I'll keep it this way just to make it simple. But I'm just thinking, because there's so much, it's such a pattern that even if I did just like a black leather or like a black patent leather, that would look really good. But anyway, I'm going to keep it like this. So go ahead, and I'm going to attach the stabilizer, then use the edge coat around here, and then let it dry before we attach it. Okay, so while I'm allowing these to dry, I also want to do the edge coat on the little D-ring holders. So I'll just go ahead and take this out. And just do the same thing. Just use the edge coat on these. So while that's drying, I am going to work on the lining. So I actually changed the lining. I was going to do just like this white fabric, but I'm going to do this faux suede, which is actually really pretty, and I've got lots of it. So in an effort to try to, I guess, I don't know, get rid of some of this fabric, I am going to use this. Okay, this is the front. So what I'm going to do with the lining is I'm going to attach it all in one piece like we did this. So we're going to do the front, which is this piece. We're going to attach it to the bottom, which is this piece. And then we're going to attach it here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to stitch like this, and then the other side like this. So with right sides together. So right sides together, just so that the bottom, the flat bottom will have the seam, and we're not going to do any other seams throughout. Everything else that we stitch together in terms of the lining will be like stitching with the lining raw edge exposed. I hope that makes sense. It's late and I'm tired. All right, so let's go ahead and stitch this. And I mean, I guess you could press it. May not be necessary, but you could press it. So yes, go ahead and stitch this and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have the lining stitched and we have I didn't press it out, but nonetheless, here we have it. So now what we're gonna do, we'll just set this to the side for a moment and we'll take the bag, and this is the back that we're gonna be working on. So you have this pocket here. What you want to do is take the lining and place it here. What you want to do is you want to fix it. So you want to either put the tape or you want to put the glue. So once you do that, go ahead and let it dry, and then you're going to, and you want to make sure it's with wrong side down with the lining. And then you're going to go ahead and place it on here. If you need to reorient yourself with where this should go, just kind of place this here, and it lets you know here, this is the back pocket placement. So it'll tell you where to put it. But I've made this bag 7 million times, so I can kind of eyeball it. All right, so once you place it, once you put the lining on, then you want to go ahead and you want to stitch this in place. So you want to reinforce the edges here, stitch down and across. Of course, leaving this part here open. Okay, so we have the little back pocket attached. Now we need to work on, oh shoot, this part. So what we're gonna do, which I totally messed this up. I should have put this on before, but not a big deal. So we're gonna place this. Right under here. And then we're going to stitch across. We're going to do that for both sides. Now, I completely forgot about these. What we should have done prior to attaching this is just attach this, but we can get them in here with no problem. Kind of a problem, but it's not a biggie. Okay, so we have both of these, and then just go ahead and secure the stitch across. Okay, so we have the back stitched on, the back pocket. Now what we want to do is just go ahead and do the edge coat all around the edges, as well as the edges of the gusset. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and let this dry completely. Okay, so I let this dry overnight, and now what we're going to do is install the handle here. But because this is kind of like a weaved fabric, it's difficult to see the holes that I put on this side of it. So we're going to figure this one out. Okay, so what you want to do is, you may need to refer back to your pattern to determine kind of like where the positioning, the holes are going to go from here. But I am just going to kind of eyeball mine. So let's go ahead and open these up. And like I mentioned before, these screws to me are so much easier than needing like grommets with a grommet tool. The only thing I will need is probably a screwdriver. Yeah, a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver. So I'm gonna grab one. I think I have one right here. Okay, so for these, I'll just need the flathead screwdriver. So we'll just look for the position. So we have the hole right here. Let's see. I'm just going to clip this on so that I know where I'm going to place this. And then right here. And see if I like where this is placed. I do. So now we're just going to take my awl. It's a lot easier to do when you can actually see where the hole is. So I'm just going to take this and push it through. You just want to make sure it's straight. I'm going to put another clip in here just to secure it a bit more. And then just go through here. So the diameter is a little bigger, a lot bigger than this all. So what I typically do is, yes, I make this little space, but then I go in and kind of like twist this around, and it makes the hole a bit bigger. So then I'll just push this through. And it's going to take some finessing. Probably do a little more. Just kind of stick this in there and spin it.
Motion detected at front door.
Okay, so once you have that in here, it's a little uneven, but that's all right. Then you're going to go and you're going to do the same thing with the hole that's already there. You just kind of take that in there and just kind of turn it around, and it just kind of cleans it out a bit. And then we'll put this one on this side. And then put them together. And then using the flathead screwdriver, just want to kind of screw this in. I just love these things. Okay, so here you have it. So we're going to do this to the other one, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so we have the handle attached.
Motion detected at front door.
Now what we want to do is install the hardware for the flap. So we already have the lining portion done. Now what we want to do is just kind of line this up. Now, if the lining seems to be, because this lining has a little bit of stretch in it, just a tiny bit, but it's enough to kind of like throw it off a bit, which is okay because we'll end up trimming this anyway, so don't worry about that. So we have the lining just like roughly put in, and you want to kind of fold it over. So you want to see where the closure is. Now, you can base it off of the pattern, or you could just do it this way, whichever one you want. If you just kind of like lay the pattern up there, it'll tell you exactly where to put it. Or you can do this. And you can also kind of, by doing this, get a feel for how the bag is going to sit as well. And so you can kind of see where this is. So what I generally do is I place like just some powder or some chalk on here, and which I'll grab it really quick. place some chalk and it'll tell you exactly the positioning. Okay. So it's going to be the same space across. So I need a marker. So we'll place it right here. If you don't want to go through this, just grab the pattern. But the pattern is on the other side of the room and I don't feel like getting it. So here we go. Okay. So that is an inch and all right, so what you're going to do is find your marking, and this is where you're going to install the other hardware. So, and your hardware is only going to go through your lining. It's not going to go through the back here. Hey, stop. Give me, let go. So let's go ahead, and after you have your markings, just install the hardware and do it the same way we did this one. It'll be a lot easier because you're going to be dealing with a softer fabric. Okay, so once you have this, you just want to test it out. Where the positioning will be, which I like it. And then just repeat this process with the other one. Okay, so we have the hardware installed. Now what you want to do is either glue or tape, and make sure you do it really flat, this lining to the actual bag. So we're going to do that as well as with the gusset. So there are two gussets with two pieces of lining. You also want to do the same thing with wrong sides together. You want to glue or tape the lining to the gussets as well. Okay, so
After this murder, I got a phone call from Herman Webb.
okay, so once you have the lining, like kind of like I would say hand pressed out, what you want to do now is you want to stitch around the edge, all the way around the edge, and then trim off any excess. So you want to do that for the lining here, as well as repeat this process with the gussets. Okay, so we have the lining attached to the gussets as well as the inner part of the bag. Now what we want to do is install the gusset. So you want to identify the bottom part of the bag, and you want to take the gusset and you want to lay it right here, kind of like in the, just making sure it fits in the middle here, and then go ahead and clip it. But when you clip it, you're going to leave the ends here unclipped. And then what you want to do is you're going to take and then clip. And go all the way around. Now, depending on what type of fabric or leather you're going to use, if you're using like a calf leather, it's going to be soft, so you're not going to have an issue. But if you're using a leather that is going to be a lot harder, I'll tell you what you need to do, because doing this might be a bit of a challenge. So what you'll probably have to do is hand stitch just in the corners, because getting a machine to go in the corners is going to be a little challenging. It's going to be challenging regardless, but definitely doable. But if it's a really thick leather, you'll have to just go ahead and hand stitch it if you don't have a leather sewing machine. If you have a leather sewing machine, you'll be fine. Just, you know, you'll be able to sew it with no problem. But if you're using just a regular machine and you have thicker leather, I would just say don't even try it, and just use, I use this nylon thread that's for all the leather and like the really thick materials. I mean, it's never going to break. And just use a large eye needle and stitch right here in each corner to secure the corners, and it'll be just fine. And you really won't be able to see it. Okay, so what you want to do now is go stitch here all the way around, making sure you secure the ends. And you want to do that on both sides. Okay, so we have the gusset installed. And so now you just want to take this time to kind of like cut off any excess strands, strings, whatever. Now, if you used a leather, you would have burnished the sides, and then you can go through and you can Google burnishing, or I'll let you know. Like, burnishing is when you're basically making the edges smooth. So then you put on the edge coat, and it's just a very professional finish. You can only do that with leather. So, of course, this isn't leather. So what we need to do now, we have the gussets installed. So just trim off anything excess, and then you want to go through and use the edge coat again, because what that is going to do, and it's going to conceal the fact that I used a green lining for this. So just go ahead and do that on both sides, and just touch up anywhere in terms of the edge coat that you needed, and that is it. You have that option to make this bag with leather. You can make it with cloth. You can make it with something interesting like this. It's kind of like a raffia. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Happy sewing.